My dad stole my savings to buy his favorite son a saxophone, kicked me out when I refused to respect him, and now he has to watch me go viral while he can't pay rent. All right, so I guess I should just start from the beginning. I, 18 male. Now, and honestly, my family life has always been kind of messed up. I grew up with my dad, my mom, and my younger sibling Josh, 14 male now, so about 4 years younger than me. I also technically have an older half-brother named Mike, 25 male, from my dad's teenage years, but he never lived with us. He lived alone, and even though we only saw him once in a while, we were really close and talked on the phone all the time. But mostly it was just me, Josh, mom, and dad, under one roof. Now here's the thing about my dad, and this is where everything kind of starts. He doesn't work. At all. Hasn't for as long as I can remember. He's never had a job the entire time I've been alive. When I asked my mom about it once, she said he messed up his chances early on, dropped out of school, never learned a trade, and every time he tried to hold down a job, he'd either quit after a week or get fired for arguing with the boss. Eventually, he just stopped trying altogether. So, he stayed home. His excuse was always, I'm taking care of the kids, but really, he just sat around watching TV or napping. Meanwhile, my mom was the one who actually worked her ass off. She was basically out of the house most of the day, leaving early in the morning and not coming back until late. She's the only reason we had food, bills paid, and a roof over our heads. Because of that, me and Josh spent a lot of time stuck with my dad. And let me tell you, Dad has this obvious favoritism thing going on. Like, he doesn't even try to hide it. Josh is his golden child, the one who can do no wrong. I, on the other hand, was the screw-up, the lazy one, the black sheep, even when I wasn't doing anything wrong. When I was around 10 or 11, I started noticing it more clearly. I'd be sitting at the table doing homework, and Josh would be goofing off, not even touching his books. Dad would come in and say, "Why aren't you playing with your brother? You're the older one. You should take care of him." Like it was somehow my job to make Josh happy. If I complained, Dad would slam his hand on the table and yell, "Don't talk back. You think you know better than me?" I'd just shut up and get back to my homework, because I didn't want to deal with it. Mom wasn't around most of the time to see this because she was always at work. When she was home, Dad acted way nicer, like he was the supportive father. He'd suddenly pretend like he was encouraging both of us equally. But the second she left the house, it went back to the same old crap. One memory that sticks out. I was maybe 12 and Josh was 8. We were in the living room. Josh had spilled juice on the carpet. Dad came in and immediately looked at me. "What did you do?" I was sitting there holding my math book. I said, "It wasn't me, it was Josh." Josh just sat there silent. Dad walked over, smacked me upside the head and said, "Don't blame your little brother for your mistakes." Then, he told me to go grab a towel and clean it. I was so mad, but I knew if I argued, I'd get worse. Meanwhile, Josh sat there sipping his juice like nothing happened. That kind of stuff happened constantly. Another thing about Dad is that he never provided anything. Like if we needed school supplies, clothes, sports gear, Mom had to buy it. He would still act like he was in charge of everything, though. This is my house, my rules. But it wasn't really his house. The place we lived in actually got passed down to my mom after her parents died when she was only 21. She'd been holding everything together on her own ever since. Without her, there would have been nothing. Sometimes I'd hear them fighting at night. Mom would be yelling, "You don't even bring in $1. What gives you the right?" And Dad would just shout back, "I take care of the kids, that's work too." I don't think he even believed that himself. Because Mom was gone so much, I kind of became the default babysitter even though I was just a kid myself. I'd get Josh ready for school, make sure he did his homework, sometimes even cooked ramen or eggs for him when Dad couldn't be bothered. And guess what? Dad would still call me lazy. He'd say stuff like, "Look at your brother, he's got potential. You just waste your time." Meanwhile, I was literally holding the house together while he sat on the couch watching TV. School wasn't much better because I carried all that frustration with me. Teachers would say, "You're distracted again." And I couldn't explain to them that my home life was a mess. By the time I was 13, I started trying to find ways to escape the house more. That's when I started looking for work. Just small jobs at first, like sweeping at the sports club. It gave me an excuse not to be home. But before I get into all that, I want to explain how music came into the picture. Because that's actually the one thing that made me feel like I wasn't completely worthless. My school had a music program, and I picked up the clarinet. At first, I didn't even know if I'd like it, but once I started playing, it just clicked. I wasn't amazing or anything, but I could see myself getting better. Funny thing is, when I started clarinet, the family was in a slightly good financial spot. Mom had just gotten a promotion, so she was able to get me a decent beginner clarinet. Not top-notch, but good enough to actually learn properly. That was like my one win. Josh later picked up the saxophone, and I'll admit, he loved it. But by then, money was tighter again, so he had to rent this busted-up saxophone from school. It squeaked all the time and the keys were loose. Still, he didn't care. He just kept practicing. And of course, Dad acted like Josh was the second coming of Mozart. Listen to your brother. That's real talent. I'd be sitting there practicing clarinet for hours, and Dad wouldn't even notice. At home, I practiced every day. I'd sit on the edge of my bed and run scales, even though Dad would complain. He'd yell from the living room, "Do you have to play that thing now? It sounds like a dying goose." Mom would defend me sometimes when she was home. She'd say, "At least he's trying. Better than him sitting around doing nothing." But most of the time, she wasn't there. So I'd just keep practicing quietly until Dad got annoyed enough to shut the door on me. One night, I was practicing a piece for school. It was Ode to Joy. Nothing crazy, but I was finally starting to get it down without squeaks. Josh walked in with his sax and started messing around with random notes, just honking away. Dad poked his head into the room and said, "Wow, Josh, you've really got something there." I lowered my clarinet and looked at him like, "Are you serious?" He didn't even acknowledge me, just patted Josh on the shoulder and walked away. I told Mom about it later when she came home exhausted from work. I said, "Why does Dad always act like Josh is the special one?" She sighed and said, "Don't let it bother you, son. I know how hard you're working." But I could tell even she was frustrated. She'd catch Dad bragging about Josh's natural talent to family members, and she'd cut in like, "Your other son plays too, you know." Dad would shrug and say, "Yeah, but Josh has that spark." I started spending more time at school after classes, practicing in the band room just so I didn't have to hear Dad's crap. Mr. Parker noticed. He said, "You've got dedication. That matters more than natural talent." That meant a lot, even though at home it felt like the opposite was true. There was one night where it almost came to blows. I was 14. He was 10. I had just gotten through a tough practice session, finally nailing this piece I'd been stuck on. Josh barges in and goes, "Dad says I might get a real sax one day if I keep it up. Maybe you should just quit clarinet. No one likes it anyway." I stood up so fast the chair fell over. "Shut up, Josh!" He laughed in my face, so I shoved him out of the room. Dad stormed in seconds later. "What the hell is going on?" Josh put on his fake innocent voice. "He hit me." Dad didn't even ask questions. He slapped me across the face and told me, "Don't you ever touch your brother again." I tried to explain, but it didn't matter. That was the pattern. No matter what happened, Josh was innocent and I was guilty. By the time I turned 15, I had been working at the local sports club for about 2 years. I started when I was 13, just doing little jobs like cleaning the locker rooms, sweeping the basketball courts, setting up cones for soccer practice, that kind of stuff. It wasn't glamorous, but I didn't care. I wanted money of my own. I was tired of asking Dad for lunch money and hearing him say, "Ask your mom." So I just took matters into my own hands. The pay wasn't much, but I saved everything. Every dollar went into this old shoebox I kept hidden in my closet. By the time I hit 15, I had about $500 saved up. For me, that was huge. My plan was simple. Buy myself a student-level clarinet. Not some beat-up beginner one, but a proper instrument that would actually help me improve. I dreamed about it constantly. Then one night, everything kind of flipped. It was after dinner. Mom had already left for her second shift. Josh was in the living room messing around with his rented sax, making it squeak like crazy. I was at the table just flipping through a music catalog I borrowed from school, circling clarinets I was considering. Dad came over and stood behind me. "What's that?" he asked, pointing at the catalog. "Clarinet catalog," I said. "I've been saving up for a student model." He leaned down, squinted at the price tags, then gave this little laugh. $500 for that? That's a waste. You can barely play the one you have." I didn't even look up. "I've been practicing. I'm getting better." He crossed his arms. "You know, your brother's sax is a piece of junk. If you really want to help this family, we could use your savings to buy him a proper saxophone." At first, I thought I misheard him. I turned my head slowly. "Wait, what?" "You heard me," Dad said, totally serious. "You've got money saved up. Instead of wasting it on another clarinet, we could use it to get Josh a good sax. He's got real talent. He could actually go somewhere with this. Think about it. Don't you want to support your brother's future?" My stomach dropped. I couldn't even believe he said that. "I've been saving for 2 years," I told him. "For me. For my clarinet. Why should I give that up for him?" Dad frowned like I was being selfish. "Because he's got potential. You don't see it?" That old clarinet you've got is fine. But Josh? He's playing on garbage. He deserves better. I just stared at him. So I don't deserve better? That's what you're saying? Don't twist my words, he snapped. I'm saying your brother's the one who can make something out of this. You're good, sure, but he's special. This family should invest in him. I slammed the catalog shut and said, "It's my money. I worked for it. I'm not giving it to him." His face tightened. "Don't talk back to me." Just then, Josh walked in with his sax hanging around his neck. He looked at me and smirked, like he already knew what Dad was trying to pull. "What's going on?" he asked. Dad ruffled his hair. "Your brother's being difficult. We're trying to figure out how to get you a proper saxophone." Josh lit up. "Really? That'd be awesome. I could play in the school jazz band for real." I glared at him. "With my money? No way." Josh shrugged, pretending like he didn't care, but I could see him grinning behind it. That night, I went to my room, shut the door, and locked it. I pulled the shoebox out from the closet and counted my money 3 times just to make sure it was still all there. Then, I shoved it under my bed, further back, and stacked some old school books in front of it. I wasn't about to let Dad borrow it. The next day, I told Mom what happened. We were alone in the kitchen while Dad was outside smoking. I said, "Dad wants me to give Josh my savings to buy him a saxophone." Her face twisted instantly. "He said that?" "Yeah. He told me Josh has potential, and that my clarinet is good enough." Mom slammed her mug down on the counter. "That money is yours. You worked for it. Don't you dare give it to him." I felt relieved that she was on my side, but she didn't stop there. That night, she tore into Dad. I was in my room, but I could hear them shouting through the walls. "Mom, how could you ask him to give up his savings? Do you know how hard he's been working?" "Dad, I'm thinking about Josh's future. He's got something special." "Mom, they both matter. Stop acting like one kid is worth more than the other." It went on for almost an hour. Eventually, Dad stormed off to the garage. I never budged. Every time he brought it up, I said, "No, it's my money." I thought that was the end of it. I started hiding the shoebox deeper in my room, stacking books in front of it, checking it almost every day to make sure it was still there. Then one afternoon, I came home from school and noticed the shoebox was gone. My stomach sank. I tore through my room, checking under the bed, in the closet, even behind my dresser. Nothing. I stormed into the living room, and there it was. Josh sitting on the couch with a brand new saxophone case on his lap, smiling like it was Christmas morning. Dad was standing next to him, arms crossed with this smug look on his face. "What the hell is that?" I demanded. Josh grinned. "My new sax. Isn't it awesome?" I spun to Dad. "Where's my money?" He didn't even flinch. "I used it for the sax. Stop acting like a child. This is for the good of the family." I felt like the air got sucked out of the room. "You stole from me. I worked 2 years for that." Dad stepped closer, jabbing his finger at my chest. "Watch your tone. That money was in under this roof, which makes it mine. And don't you dare call it stealing. I invested it where it matters." I shoved his hand away. "It was my money. You had no right." Josh was sitting there holding the sax awkwardly, looking back and forth between us. "Dad, maybe we shouldn't—" "Quiet," Dad snapped at him. Then he turned back to me. "You don't get it. Your brother is going places. You? You're wasting time. That clarinet was a hobby. This," he pointed at Josh's sax, "this is a future." My fists clenched so hard they hurt. "Screw you. You don't get to decide my future. You don't get to steal what's mine." We were nose to nose at this point, both of us yelling. Finally, I shoved past him and went to my room, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. My heart was racing, and I just stood there staring at the empty spot where my shoebox used to be. When Mom came home that night, I didn't even wait. I ran straight to the kitchen where she was putting her bag down. "They took my money," I blurted out. She froze. "What do you mean, took?" "All of it. My shoebox is gone. Dad used it to buy Josh a new saxophone." Her face went red instantly. She didn't even say anything to me. She stormed into the living room. I followed right behind. "Did you seriously take Adam's savings?" she yelled at Dad. Dad was sitting in his recliner, arms crossed like he was king of the house. "It wasn't stealing. I made a decision for the family. Josh needed that saxophone." Mom's voice shot up an octave. "That wasn't your decision to make. He worked for that money. You don't contribute a damn cent and now you're stealing from your own son?" Dad stood up, puffing out his chest. "Don't talk to me like that. I'm his father. What's his is mine until he's out of this house." I cut in, fists shaking. "That's not how it works. You didn't earn it, I did." Josh was sitting there clutching his shiny new sax, looking guilty, but not saying a word. Mom jabbed a finger at Dad. You're pathetic. Taking from your kid because you're too lazy to get a job yourself. Everything we have is because of me, or because Adam worked for it. This house isn't even yours. You don't get to play dictator here. Dad's face twisted, but instead of backing down, he turned on me. You happy now? You're tearing this family apart. Always acting like the victim. Always making me out to be the bad guy, I snapped. Because you are the bad guy. You've never done anything for us. You sit here like you own everything. But without Mom, you'd be nothing. That was it. He stepped right up to me, nose almost touching mine. You think you're a man now? You think you can talk to me like that? Get out of this house. Mom yelled, No, he's not going anywhere. Dad pointed at the door. No, he wants to disrespect me? He's gone. Pack your shit and leave. For a second, I just stood there, stunned. Then I laughed bitterly. Fine, maybe I will. I went to my room, grabbed my backpack, shoved whatever I could into it. Clothes, my clarinet, the little bit of cash I had left that wasn't in the shoebox. I didn't even look back. Mom came into the doorway, tears in her eyes. Adam, you don't have to go. Stay. But I shook my head. If I stay, he's just going to keep trying to control me. I'm done. Dad shouted from the living room. Don't come crawling back when you realize you can't make it on your own. I slung the backpack over my shoulder. I'll never need you. Then I walked out. The door slammed behind me, and just like that, I wasn't part of that house anymore. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked down the street in the dark, clutching my clarinet case like it was the only thing in the world that actually mattered. That's when I pulled out my phone and called Mike. He answered on the second ring. Yo, what's up? It's me, I said. Dad kicked me out. He took my money. I don't know what to do. There was a pause, then Mike said, Where are you? I gave him the cross street, and 15 minutes later, his old pickup pulled up. He leaned across the seat, opened the door, and said, Get in. When we got to his apartment, he tossed me a blanket. Couch is yours. Stay as long as you need. I sat there gripping my clarinet, still in shock. Mike didn't press me. He just said, I told you one day he'd pull this shit. Forget him. You're with me now. The next day, Mom called me while I was sitting on Mike's couch. She sounded tired, her voice cracking. I can't do this anymore, she said. I sat up. What do you mean? I mean your father. He's not a husband. He's not a provider. And now he's taking from you? I've been thinking about divorce for years. After what he did, I don't know if I can keep this up. I went quiet. She sighed into the phone. I'm sorry you had to go through this. I should have left him a long time ago. But if I do it now, things will change. Just know I'm on your side. Always. The next morning, Mike made coffee and fried some eggs. He set a plate in front of me. Eat. You look like hell. I mumbled thanks. He sat down across from me. So, you planning on going back? I shook my head. Number not after what he did. Mike nodded slowly, like he expected that answer. Good. Don't. He's not changing. I learned that a long time ago. I wanted to ask him what Dad was like when he was a kid, but I didn't. I just ate in silence. Over the next few days, Mike didn't baby me, but he didn't treat me like garbage either. He'd leave for the auto shop early, come back covered in grease, crash on his bed, then get up and do it again. He let me stay on the couch without complaining. At night, he'd flip on the TV, and while he was half asleep watching, I'd pull out my clarinet and practice. He'd make comments now and then like, that sounded cleaner than yesterday, or you're still squeaking on that note. He wasn't even a musician, but he was paying attention, something Dad never did. One time, I was sitting on the couch, staring at my phone and holding a cup of water without even drinking it. I must have been zoning out because Mike came out of his room, rubbing his eyes and scratching his head. Yo, everything good? Mom's thinking about divorce, I said. He snorted. About time. And that was that. He didn't sugarcoat it. He just said what we were both thinking. Those first weeks at Mike's changed me. I didn't feel like the kid trapped under Dad's thumb anymore. I felt like I had some control. I had my clarinet, my job at the sports club, and now someone who actually had my back. And that's when Mike tossed me a flyer from the auto shop and said, There's this restaurant looking for live music. You should try. The restaurant wasn't fancy. Tony's Place was one of those family-owned Italian joints where the walls were lined with old photos, the tables were always full, and the smell of garlic hit you the second you walked in. When I first walked up to Tony, clarinet case in hand, I felt like an idiot. You play? Tony asked, looking me up and down. Yeah, I said. All right, play something. Right there, In the middle of an empty dining room before opening hours, I set up and played. My hands were shaking so bad I thought I'd drop the reed, but once I started, it came out clean. When I finished, Tony rubbed his chin and said, "Not bad, kid. Come Friday night." Come Friday. We'll see what the customers think. That Friday, I stood in the corner of the restaurant while people ate spaghetti and meatballs, trying not to puke from nerves. First song went okay, second one better. By the third, people actually clapped. After my set, a couple came up and said, "That was great, kid. Keep it up." I walked home grinning. For the first time in forever, I felt like I wasn't invisible. Weeks went by like that. I played at Tony's a few nights a week, went to school, and practiced at Mike's every night. Tony started pulling me aside saying stuff like, "You're bringing in customers. They're asking when you're on next. You've got something, kid." Then one night, it all changed. The restaurant was packed. Families, couples, even a group celebrating a birthday. I was halfway through my set when I noticed some guy at a table holding his phone up recording. I didn't think anything of it. People sometimes did that. 2 days later, I got a text from a classmate. "Bro, is this you?" With a link. I opened it, and there I was, playing clarinet in Tony's place. The video had thousands of views already. Comments like, "This kid's insane," and "Where is this restaurant? I need to hear him live." I showed Mike. He smirked. "Told you? You're gonna blow up." By the end of the week, the video was everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, even a local news page shared it. People were DMing me asking for lessons or where I was playing next. Tony was thrilled. "Kid, whatever you're doing, keep it up. You put this place on the map." He even bumped my pay. But of course, Dad saw it too. Mom texted me first. "Your dad saw the video. He's losing it." 2 nights later, my phone rang. Dad's name on the screen. My stomach flipped. I answered. "You think you're some kind of star now?" he barked. I clenched my jaw. "I'm just playing, Dad. That's all." "You embarrassed me. People are asking why I wasn't there, why I didn't help you. You made me look bad." I laughed bitterly. "This isn't about you. It's about me. I worked for this. I built it. You ungrateful little—" He stopped, then hissed, "Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget who raised you." "Raised me?" "Mom raised me. You sat on the couch." Then I hung up. My hands were shaking, but it felt damn good. The video just kept blowing up. More gigs, more offers, more people showing up just to hear me play. One Friday night, I was halfway through my set when I noticed a familiar face near the back of the room. It was Mom, and next to her, Dad and Josh. My chest tightened instantly. I hadn't talked to Dad since that phone call where he accused me of embarrassing him. Now here he was in my place, where I had built something on my own. I kept playing, trying to ignore it. But halfway through the song, Dad stood up. He clapped his hands loudly and started walking toward the little stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he shouted, cutting me off. The whole room went quiet. Tony's eyes went wide behind the bar, and I froze, clarinet halfway to my mouth. "My son is not bad," Dad said, waving his hand at me like I was some opening act. "But you haven't heard real talent yet. Tonight I present to you my younger son, Josh." The crowd exchanged confused glances. Josh looked mortified, clutching his saxophone case like he wanted to disappear. "Dad, I don't think—" "Get up there!" Dad barked, practically dragging him toward the stage. I stepped back, stunned. Tony looked like he was about to blow a gasket, but Dad was already shoving Josh onto the stage. "This kid," Dad announced proudly, "is the future. A real prodigy. Show them, Josh." Josh hesitated, then slowly pulled out his sax. His hands were shaking. He glanced at me like he was silently begging me to stop this, but I didn't move. This was his mess with Dad. Finally, he took a deep breath and started playing. And man, it was bad. Like, painfully bad. Notes all over the place, squeaks every other second, rhythm completely off. People in the restaurant started wincing. A couple near the front whispered to each other and covered their ears. By the time he stumbled through half a song, someone in the back muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "What the hell is this?" Josh's face turned bright red, and he stopped mid-note. The silence was brutal. Dad clapped like nothing happened. "See? Real talent. He just needs a chance." But the crowd wasn't buying it. Nobody clapped. Nobody smiled. It was awkward as hell. Tony finally stepped forward. "All right, that's enough," he said firmly. He nodded at me. "Play us something." I lifted my clarinet and started in on a piece I knew would land. Smooth, clean, sharp. Within seconds, the room came alive again. People tapped their feet, some nodded along, and by the end of the song, The whole place was clapping and cheering like the disaster never happened. Dad's face twisted into this ugly scowl. He grabbed Josh by the shoulder. "We're leaving!" Josh looked down at the floor, humiliated. He didn't even look at me as Dad dragged him out, but Mom stayed. She walked up to the stage after they stormed off, her face tired but proud. "You played beautifully," she said softly. "Thanks," I muttered, still catching my breath. She squeezed my arm. "Don't let him take this away from you. He tried, but he failed. This is yours." After that night at Tony's restaurant, things between my parents finally snapped for good. Mom had been saying for years she thought about divorce. But after Dad stole from me, kicked me out, and then embarrassed himself dragging Josh on stage, she was done pretending. A couple weeks later, she called me while I was at Mike's. "It's happening," she said flatly. "What is?" I asked. "I filed for divorce. I should have done this 10 years ago." I didn't even know what to say at first. Part of me wanted to celebrate. Part of me felt weird that it was really happening. I just said, "Good. You deserve better." She sighed. Better late than never. Since the house legally came from Mom's side of the family, she got to keep it. Dad had no claim. So suddenly, for the first time in his life, he had to figure out how to actually survive on his own. From what I heard, he moved into some small apartment on the other side of town. Josh went with him. That one hurt a little. Part of me thought Josh would choose to stay with Mom. But he was still young, only 14, and Dad had been in his ear his whole life telling him he was the special one. The saxophone didn't last long. A month or so after the restaurant disaster, they ended up selling it, probably for rent or groceries. When I heard that, I didn't even know how to feel. On one hand, I wasn't surprised. On the other, I thought, all that drama, all that fighting, and the damn thing didn't even last. Meanwhile, Mom stayed in the house. She called me one evening and said, "The house feels too quiet. I want you to come live with me again. It's yours as much as mine. You don't belong on your brother's couch forever." I hesitated. I wanted to say yes. I missed her, and it would have been easier, but I had something to tell her. "Mom," I said carefully, "the orchestra reached out. They want me to join them. It's not full-time yet, but it's a huge step. If I take it, it'll mean I'll stay at Mike's, rehearsals, touring sometimes. I can't just sit still anymore. This is what I've been working for." There was silence on the other end. Then she said softly, "I understand. I'm proud of you. Go do it. Don't ever feel guilty for choosing your dream." That hit me hard. For years, I'd been treated like my music didn't matter, like I was wasting my time. Now my mom was telling me it did matter. So I joined. The first rehearsals were intimidating. Dozens of musicians, all insanely good, all looking at me like, "Okay, show us what you've got." But once I started playing, I knew I belonged there. It was different from Tony's restaurant, but just as real. Mike came to my first concert with his grease-stained work shirt still on, sitting in the back row. Afterward, he slapped me on the back and said, "See? Knew you weren't just noise." Mom came too. She cried through the whole thing, then hugged me so tight after that I could barely breathe. Dad didn't show, of course. Josh didn't either. I stopped expecting them to. In the future, I ended up applying to a proper music school, and when I got the acceptance letter, I sat on Mike's couch, letter in hand, and just laughed. All those years of being called selfish, lazy, a waste of space, all the fights, the stolen savings, the nights walking to school with no lunch money, all of it had led to this moment, proof that I wasn't nothing. Mom framed the acceptance letter and hung it on her wall. Mike told me he'd bragged about me at work. Even Tony kept a picture of me playing at his restaurant by the bar. Dad? He probably still sat on his couch blaming the world. Josh? Maybe one day he'd figure it out. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had my clarinet, my music, and finally, my future.